We are holding in Chagiga. We are holding in Daf Tes Amud Beis, second page. But as I said, I felt last week that the Gemara was a little bit difficult, and what bugs me is that if we go through a Gemara and say like one page, okay, this page we didn't really get, so let's just this is not going to be a complete thing. So therefore, I'm gonna do a very brief summary of the page. The real truth is the content discussed in the page, the items discussed, may be a little bit difficult because they're different. They're talking about Zav, talking about Nozir, but the idea behind the questions and answers are very simple. So here it goes. Here's a summary of the page. In the Mishnah we said that you have to, we know already we have to bring a Korban Chagiga. One of the three Korbanos we bring every Yantif is a Korban Chagiga, basically a Korban for the festival. And the Gemara says, the Mishnah says that if you did not bring that Korban Chagiga on the first day, you can make it up. You can even make it up on the last day of Sukkot, which technically is its own Yantif. I mean, that says its own Yantif. The Gemara first brings proof where we see that from. And then the Gemara says a machlikas, a disagreement between Rabbi Oishi and Rabbi Yochanan. What does it mean that you can make up a Korban? Does it mean that the first day you have an obligation to bring a Korban? If you can't bring that day, all the rest of the Yantiv, you just make it up? Or does it mean that the first day, if you didn't do it the first day, the obligation shifts over to the second day, and now the obligation is on the second day? If that doesn't happen, it's the third day or the fourth day, and so on and so forth. What's the difference? We said the difference is what if someone is not obligated to bring a Korban on the first day? That's someone that's limping, someone is blind, someone that can't is sick. He does not have an obligation to go to the Beis Hamikdash. If he is sick on the first day, but he becomes healthy on the second day, now becomes an argument. According to Rabbi Yochanan, that it's only making up for the first day. If you weren't obligated, there's nothing for you to make up. According to Rabbi Oishe, that every day it's its own obligation. Just the first day is the main obligation, and that obligation shifts over to the second and the third day. So the first day you weren't obligated, it's fine. The second day you're feeling good, you're obligated, go and bring the Korban. That's the machlokes, and that is what the difference would be. So basically, according to Rabbi Yochanan, the Gemara is saying, according to Rabbi Yochanan, if someone is not obligated, there's no making up. That's what it says. So you're not obligated, you're not making up. So the Gemara, on that concept, the Gemara is going to ask the question. Ask a question about a Nazir. A Nazir is someone that took upon himself to not drink wine and not cut his hair for a period of time. And what happens if it becomes tummy? And then he has to cut his hair and restart the count. So he has to restart the count. What happens if he restarts? If he goes through the whole purification process, then he has to go to mikvah and bring a korban as making up for what he missed, for what he messed up. So what happens if he went through the whole process? He went to the mikvah. Now it comes the night, and he has to bring a korban the next day. What if that night he becomes tamei again? So obviously, if he becomes tamei again, he has to go through the whole purification process again. But the question is, does he bring one korban because he became tamei in the same period? I mean, he hadn't brought a korban yet. Bring another korban. That will include the first time he became tamei and the second time. Or because the night came already, he has to bring two korbanos. So Rabbi Yochanan says you have to bring two korbanos. So the Gemara basically says at night he had no obligation yet to bring his first korban, yet you say that he would have to bring a second korban if he becomes tamei again. Why? Because you say that even though you don't have an obligation to bring the night before, but you have an obligation to make it up. Therefore, because you're making up for the night before, if it becomes tamei, it's a new impurity, it's a new tamei, and you have to bring another korban. So again, Rabbi Yochanan Nazir says, even though you did not have an obligation that night, you still make it up the next day. That's what the Gemara is trying to bring out from the Gemara over there. So we see a contradiction. Here Rabbi Yochanan said that if you're not obligated on the first day, you don't make it up. And by Nazir, the way Rabbi Yochanan explains the Gemara there, what we understand is that even though you're not obligated at night to bring the korban, the fact that you bring the korban the next day, you're making up for the night before. So we see you could make up something that you were not obligated. That's the Gemara's question. So the Gemara answers, the first answer is that when it comes to impurity, when it comes to tamei, we look at it differently. Because we have the concept of Pesach Sheni, the second Pesach. Last week we read it, the whole concept, the whole reason why we have Pesach Sheni is because Because Tama became Tameh. So we know the Torah says that a concept of making up Tashlumin exists when it comes to Tameh. So by Tuma, by impurity, Rabbi Yochanan will agree that there is a concept of making up. Everything else, like a Korban Chagiga, there isn't, but Tuma is. The Gemara asks, and that's basically again, question was, Rabbi Yochanan says you can't make up something you were not obligated for. And here in the Gemara Nazir says you do bring a korban the next day, which is making up for something you weren't obligated yet. The Gemara answers by Nazir is different because we're talking about Tumah Salman became Tameh. And the Gemara asks the question now, that is all good if you say the Pesach Sheni is a make-up korban for the first Yontif. The halacha is, Pesach Sheni is not making up. Pesach Sheni is a chiyuv, is an obligation that kicks in once you didn't do the first one. It kicks in its own thing. Right. It's its own entity, its own chiyuv. Yeah, it's its own thing. So now that it's its own thing, now that the answer that Rabbi Yochanan gave that by Tumah is different because of Pesach Sheni, because Pesach Sheni is a makeup korban, goes down because Pesach Sheni, according to some opinion, is not a makeup korban. Not only that, according to halacha, the Rambam writes, according to halacha, that Pesach Sheni is its own yontif. So we know that that's not. So we have to bring a different answer. What's the answer? And that's the answer we're going to stick with. The answer is that as soon as your time comes, which means that night when you go to mikvah, and then it comes the night, that night it is already your time to bring the korban. It's called lav mechus hazman. There's not missing any time between. The reason we can't bring a korban, you're only going to bring a korban in 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, is because you don't bring korbanos at night. It's a technical thing, but the time of your korban arrived. So therefore, in Nazir, when he becomes Tumah at night, it's not because he wasn't obligated. The truth is, he was obligated already. He was obligated already. That's the answer. Tumah was obligated, and because he was obligated, therefore he brings another korban. So it's nothing to.
So the question is, he has to bring the korban straight after he finishes. He's becoming pure.
No, it goes to become pure. You go to mikvah.
I'm saying after the mikvah part.
Yeah.
After the nighttime.
Then you bring a korban.
So that next day he has to bring a korban.
Yeah, yeah. What happens if he becomes impure the night before?
Right.
So he has to start a count. He has to go through the process again, and then when it comes, he has to bring 2 korbanos. And the reason is because at that nighttime you already hit the obligation of a korban, and that's why over there you do bring it. So it's not that you're making up something. It's not the fact you're making up something. It's you're obligated. The only reason that you can't bring a korban because it's night. It's nothing to do with being obligated or not. You are obligated right away. There's nothing to make up. So if that's the answer of that Papa gives. So now we have it. Rabbi Yochanan says that a korban chagiga on the first day you bring, if you weren't obligated, you don't make it up. By Tumah, it's different because it's not the next morning you bring a korban. It's not because you're making up for the night before. You are obligated now. It's nothing to do with being making up for the night before. It's nothing to do with making up. Then I'm going to ask a question. If you say that when the night comes, you are now not missing any time, lav mechus hazman, not missing any time, you're right now obligated. So the Gemara asks a question on that, and it says that, we see in a different place, we see it by someone that has an emission at night, and he becomes tamei because of this emission. What happens is the first emission you have to go to mikvah that day, and you wait 1 day. If you see 2, you count the 2 days, and you go to mikvah. If you see 3 times, you become tamei for 7 days. We don't have that halachas anymore today, but you go tamei for 7 days, and after the 7th day, you go on during the day you go to the mikvah. You have to wait overnight and bring a korban on the 8th day. The Gemara over there has a whole machlokes back and forth. If basically a set of 3 makes you tamei for a week, what happens if you see another 3 times on the 8th day? So the Gemara makes a difference whether it's the night he sees 1 and by day 2, or 2 at night and 1 by day. And the Gemara says, according to Rabbi Yochanan said, that once the nighttime hits, it's all the same. Right now you're already obligated to bring that korban. It shouldn't make a difference whether you see once at night, twice by day, or twice at night and once by day. The time came. These new 24 hours, it's a new day, and now you would have to bring another, you have to go through the whole process again. So the Gemara says basically, why does Rabbi Yochanan say that once the night comes, it's considered its own thing, that it's not nothing, no time is missing. So basically, the Gemara says that Rabbi Yochanan does not agree with that opinion. In the Gemara of Zav, where it talks about the becoming impure once at night, twice by day, twice at night, once by day, he explains someone else's opinion. Rabbi Yochanan's opinions is, like I said before, we stick with it, that once the night hits, you become obligated to bring a carbon for a zav, you become obligated to bring a carbon for a nazir, and the same thing is, so once the night hits, you're already obligated. The next morning, the carbon that you bring next morning is not making up for something you weren't obligated. That's the time when you bring the carbon, nothing to do with making up no obligation. So therefore, in our Mishnah, when Rabbi Yochanan says that when there is no obligation, there's nothing to make up, that's the end. That's what Rabbi Yochanan holds, and that's what we stick with. That Rabbi Yochanan says that if the first day of Yontif you were not obligated to bring a carbon, you don't have to make it up. And all the questions that we asked, they go down because Rabbi Yochanan doesn't agree, or he answered it that it's talking about that the night is already the next day. That's the whole Gemara. Now, in the Gemara we discussed certain aspects, but this is the whole Gemara. The new Gemara is in Daf Testament base, in the 2 dots. In Testament base in 2 dots, it is about 15 lines, 15 lines from the top. Oval HaRegel, in the Mishnah it said like this, that if the Yontif passes by, and V'loi Chag, and you weren't festive, you did not bring the Korban Chagiga, you're not responsible for its loss. Meaning that if you say, you put away an animal and said, this animal is going to be the Korban Chagiga, and the whole Yontif passes by, and then the animal gets lost, because you have no obligation to bring another Korban Chagiga now, because the time is gone. Therefore, if the animal gets lost, you don't have to replenish the animal. Usually, when you say a korban, when you say that this is going to be a korban neder, I want to bring a korban shlamim to the Beis Hamikdash. If the animal gets lost, you have to buy a new animal. That's usually the halacha. But here, with Chagiga, you don't have to do that. That's what the Mishnah is saying. V'al zeh nemar, and this type of thing where you can't make things up anymore, nemar, this is what the pasuk says, me'uvas la yuchal liskoin, something that became crooked cannot be straightened out, cannot be fixed. The chisadain, and something that is missing, la yuchal imanis, cannot be counted. Now I said that I don't know if you guys remember the Yeshiva Boys Choir. They made a song, which I posted. It's hard time finding it. Amalei b'hei lehilel. So who was b'hei and who was ben bagbag? We have in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, we have the famous ben hei and bagbag. We know and what? What? The same person. According to one opinion, it's the same person. The other Shmuel says it's the same person. They were Gadim. They were converts. And if you look in Tosfos on the side, small Tosfos by Hey Lehilel, Yesh Mefalshim Shegehaya, he was a Geit Tzedek, was a convert. V'hainu, what's the Hey and the Hey? Why was Hey twice with a Hey? Ben Avam Asah, he was a son of Avam Asah, Sheni Toisav Hey B'Shmon. Avam and Asah, both a Hey was added to the name. So the son of Hey, the son of the ones that the Hey was added to. V'chein Bagbag. Bagbag is also Bagbag. They say is a Rashi Tevis Ben Gadim. The Kula Talmud the Maseches.
That's what that is, huh?
The Maseches Shas changes. Says the Kule Gematria Oilehei. The Bag base in Gimel is 2 and 3 is 5. Base in Gimel is 2 and 3 and 5. Says the same idea. Hey, Bagbag. Certain people say it's the same. It was the same person. Why was he called in such an interesting name? It was a nickname, it wasn't a real name. Why was it a nickname? So they say in the Medrash Shmuel, it brings down that it was at a time where converts were persecuted for becoming converts, and so they gave them a nickname so the authorities wouldn't be able to catch up on them and wouldn't find them. This is who Bahei and Bagbag is. Amalei, back in the Gemara. Amalei Bahei told Hillel. It says in the Mishnah that something that's missing you cannot count. Usually, when something is missing, what's the opposite of missing? It's filling it up. If something is missing, you fill it up. So why does it say if something is missing, you can't count it? The Mishnah should have said if something that's missing can't be filled up, it can't be fixed up. Same thing, something that's crooked can be made straight. The opposite of crooked is straight. Same thing, the opposite of missing is filling it up. Why does the Mishnah say that he has to be can't be counted? Lehimolis in Baile, should have said lehimolis, has to be molis, has to be filled up. Elo Bahei explains, this is when his friends went over to their friend and said, come and let's do a mitzvah together. We'll do a certain mitzvah and you'll be counted and you'll have part of this mitzvah. But he says, no, I don't want to be counted with you. After the mitzvah is done, he can't go retroactively and say, you know what, I'm part of you. I'm part of your group. No, there's no such thing. If he decided not to be part of a mitzvah, he's not part of a mitzvah. So what I wrote in the text was, I don't understand why you would make a song about it. Like what? I didn't make a mitzvah, I wasn't part of it. So I don't understand the idea of making a song about such a thing. So that's it. But that's what Bar-Heya told Hillel in regards of our Mishnah. Highly himonos. Why is it called counting? Because we're talking about someone that missed out chesed, he missed out an opportunity to do a mitzvah, and now he can't be counted part of the mitzvah. Bar-Heya said another thing to Hillel. What is Maidich Siv? What is it? It says v'shaftem. You return again. The isem ben tzaddik l'asha come. Return and look again. Look at the difference between a tzaddik and a rasha. A wicked person and a tzaddik. Ben oived elikim is someone that serves Hashem. L'asha lo oived, it's someone that doesn't serve Hashem. So he asks the question: what is the difference between tzaddik and oived elikim? Hainu tzaddik, hainu oived elikim. Someone that serves Hashem is called a tzaddik. Tzaddik is called oived elikim. It's the same thing. Hainu rasha, hainu rasha lo oived. The same thing also with a wicked person. It's if someone doesn't serve Hashem, is a wicked person. So he asked Hillel, why does it say twice? It's redundant. It's repeating itself. Amalei. So Hillel told him, no. Avdai v'loy avadai, avadai v'loy avadai, tavai tzedek gemunina. Someone that served Hashem and someone that didn't serve Hashem, both are considered tzaddik. So what does it mean? Someone that doesn't serve Hashem. It's not the same. Someone that learns. Studies learns, repeats his learning 100 times, that someone repeats 101 times. I've said it, brought that in Tanya also, that when you repeat 100 times, that's actually when it clicks in. I think there was a guy actually that had a whole way of learning Gemara that he wouldn't go through the daf yomi, but he would start, and then the next day he would repeat, and quickly run through the daf that he learned before, and then go to the next one. And the third day he would start from the beginning just quickly, and like this, once he reached the end of Masechta, it took him a longer time to learn, but he actually ran through the entire Gemara, and he had a whole shit on how to learn, a method of learning, and he retained that knowledge. It's very difficult to do that, but that's what it is. So if someone does something 101 times, it is different than doing 100. The Gemara asks, it's just one time more. Amalei said, hey, told Hillel, because one time that he missed, you call him someone that didn't serve Hashem? He did it 100 times. Who learned something 100 times? Who learned something 5 times? He learned it 100 times and he still call him a loyavadi, someone who didn't serve Hashem. Amalein, yeah. Go look outside. Say Olamad, go outside and see Mishuk Shel Chamadim, from a market of people that rent out their donkeys to carry the packages around. What do you do there? They say asala palasi bezuz echad. The price usually is 10 for 10 palasi. They rent themselves out for 1 zuz. But if you go an 11th palasa, which technically should have been 1.1 zuz, because you're just going one more palasa, but here the price jumps ridiculously high. But today's is a 2 zuz. Okay, so here we see why is that so. So there's different ways of explaining it. Some people say that it's after a long day of walking, you want to be asked to walk the extra mile, but the Masha explains that based on a Gemara that says that an average person during the daytime can walk 10 parsa. That's how much an average person can walk. What is 10 parsa? I don't know right now the calculation, but that's what a person can walk during the day. Now, you are asking him to squeeze in an extra parsa in the same time frame. Let's say someone can walk 10 hours a day and walks 10 parsa. Now in the same, you don't want him to walk 11 hours. You want him to walk the same 10 hours, but you want him to do it quicker. Every parsa that he walks is more difficult. So you see that going extra means you have to repeat everything. It's more difficult. So therefore you see, that's why it's more expensive. More expensive. So basically based on that, someone that serves Hashem, if he learns something 100 times, it's very different than someone that learns 100 times. There's a Tosfos Rid here that says a very nice thing. He says that he says a gematria for this. It says ve'achachma and wisdom and me'ayin timatze. Where can you find wisdom? If you look at the word me'ayin, is spelled mem, which is 40, Aleph is 1, so 41. A Yud, so 51. Nun, 101. Chachma, 101 times. If you learn it 100 times, 101 times, then Chachma, then you can find Chachma, then if you got wisdom. So he brings a nice gematria. The Mashal brings another gematria, and it says, if you look at the first letters of Asher Loi Avodoi, Aleph, Lamed, Ayin, it's again 101. Sorry. Oivid Elikim, Oivid Elikim La is Ayin, Aleph, Lamed, that's 101. And Loi Avodoi is only, the first two letters is Lamed, Ayin, is Gematria 100. So someone who doesn't serve Hashem is only 100 times, and someone who does serve Hashem is 101 times. Okay. They actually say that Valhei was one of the Imam that was Zoichet to see Eliyahu Navi. Eliyahu Navi revealed himself to Valhei and Va'amal Rabbi Lazar. Some people say it wasn't to Valhei, it was to Rabbi Lazar. What it is that it says in a pasuk, Hinei tzlafticha v'lo bekesef. I formed you, but not with silver. Bechalticha, I chose you. I also type of forming. Bekud oini, in the pit, in the oven, in the furnace of poverty. This is a very difficult Gemara. For me at least, it was difficult to learn, and I guess I open the floor if anyone wants to explain this. The pasuk, the mafalshim on this pasuk bring many different ways of explaining this pasuk, and they say basically the Eibush didn't want to punish the Yidden, so instead of tzalfticha means also refining. If you take silver and you want to refine it, then what you do is, in order to get pure silver, you have to take all the garbage away. In order to get 925 silver, which is I guess the highest one that can stay in a form, you have to throw all the garbage away. How do you do it? You put it in the furnace, you fire. Anyway, so the Mepharshim explain that the Eibush told the Yidden, you made Avedos, you sinned many times. I can purify you like silver, which means I can weed out all the bad. But if I do that, there's not going to be many people going to be left standing. If I purify the Yidden, because of all the Avedas. So therefore the Eibush tells him, I purified you, I formed you, but leibekesef, not like silver. How do I do it? I gave you poverty. But the simple pshat is that the Eibush said leibekesef, he did not mold us in a form of silver, he did not mold us in a form of money. And what did he? He shows for us the furnace of poverty. Poverty is a furnace, it's difficult, yes, poverty is difficult, but the Eibush decided to choose for us poverty. Why? The Eibush went around looking for different character traits to give the Yidden. He wanted the Yidden to stay straight and narrow. He didn't want them to go off the beaten path. And he was looking, what can I give them in order for them to stay on the straight and narrow? And the only thing that he found that was an effective measure to keep them going was poverty. That's what the Gemara says. Poverty keeps us on the straight. I don't know. Amar Shmuel. There's a famous. There was one time that our Rebbe went, and he was Menachem Oval. I believe it was the Kapishnitzah Rebbe, and he was asking the Kapishnitzah Rebbe that it should. I think, if I remember correctly, all details, was asking to give a blessing for his Chassidim that they should become wealthy. And the Kabbalah said it was, because we know that the challenge of wealth is the sign of Ashidus. Then the challenge of wealth is very big, because then it's a big challenge. So the Rebbe told him, but the challenge of being poor is even bigger. The Rebbe was very for the Chassidim should be wealthy. And this Gemara has to be, I don't know, I guess we have to think about this Gemara. What exactly does it mean? Amar Shmuel, so Shmuel said, Rabbi Yosef, or maybe Rabbi Yosef, the second line from the wide lines. This is what the people say. Anius, poverty, is it's beautiful, for Yidden, for Yehudim, ki barzo sumka lesusyo chivla. Like a red harness, barzo, a harness, sumka, a red one, lesusya chivda, for a white horse. When you have a white horse, if you want to accentuate its beauty, the white horse in itself is beautiful. You want to accentuate its beauty, you add a red harness. It sticks out. It becomes, the whole white becomes even whiter. The white sticks out. The Mashal explains here that red goes on the comparison with our example that we bring. We're saying basically just like a horse, the redness brings out the beauty, the white. Same thing also by Yidden, the poverty brings out the beauty of the Yidden. That's what the Gemara is trying to say. So Mashal explains that it says somewhere that if someone dreams about a white horse in a dream, then it's a good simon. But if someone dreams something red, it's not a good simon. So the red goes on the poverty. It's not a good thing. Poverty itself is not funny. It's not pretty. It's not good. But the poverty can bring out the beauty of the Yidden. So I don't really know what it means, but I'll tell you that on Friday it happened to be that I was sitting in someone's office. Someone was supposed to give my organization a check, so I told him to come pick it up in his office. I'm sitting in his office, and he's like a wealth manager or something, manages whatever, one of these financial things. And he says, wait in the waiting room. So, I see some kind of leaflets. I'm just pick it up and start going through. They have a study that says that the poorer the person is. So basically they compared Jewish philanthropist and non-Jewish philanthropist, Jewish giving and non-Jewish giving. And the interesting thing they saw is the wealthy non-Jews they give money. But the poorer the person is, the percentage goes down. The Yidden stay up high. They still give money even if they're poor. And when the Goyim it drops, I don't give. So, but the Yidden, there's a concept of giving exists even if we're poor, we give. I don't know if this is what it means, the beauty. It is something we see that there's, whenever we have a mitzvah of tzedakah, I don't know if that brings out the beauty, but that was an interesting thing that I saw. Anyway, so we should all be wealthy, and we'll be beautiful. We promise Hashem we will be beautiful even with wealth. Amen. The Mishnah says weiter. The Mishnah says, I actually skipped a piece of Gemara. I did not realize I skipped a piece of Gemara.
You skipped in the beginning.
Yes, I skipped a piece of Gemara. We go back to the 2 dots, 4 lines from the 2 dots. Tani Namahachi. We said the first one is that if someone did why is it called lehimonis and not lehimolis? Why is it called counting and not filling up? Because someone that his friends wanted to do a mitzvah and he didn't count them. Tani Namahachi, the Gemara brings proof to this from Avlaisa. Me'uvas leyuchel liskoin. What is something a me'uvas, a something crooked that he can't make straight, he can't straighten up? The shabidl kriya shma shel shachis, a kriya shma shel alv. Someone that did not say kriya shma in time in the morning or did not say kriya shma at night. Oy shabitel tefilos shel shachis, a tefilos shel alv. So he did not daven the davening in the morning or davening at night, shachis or alvis. What happened to mincha? We'll see in a moment. What is something that someone is missing and it can be counted? Someone that his friends want to do a mitzvah and he decided not to be part of their count. So, says Tosis, the second Tosis on Daf Testament base, the long Tosis, we're just going to do half of it. We have a problem. It says here that if you don't dav ma'ariv, it is something that you made crooked that you can't fix. But there is an opinion that ma'ariv is, the whole davening ma'ariv is a shus. It's not there's no obligation to have ma'ariv. It's just a nice thing to do, but it's not an obligation. So Taisa says, second Taisa, tefilos alvis, asya, this is according to the opinion, tefilos alvis choiva, that tefilos ma'ariv is an obligation. It is an obligation. The halacha actually says that ma'ariv is a choiva, you have to daven ma'ariv. The halacha actually is even that women have to daven. Afil mandama shus. Even according to the opinion that ma'ariv is not an obligation, but it's something you should do or you could do. Says Tosfos, the Gemara still goes according to that. Why? Because bechinam, for no reason, einun levatla. We shouldn't just not daven ma'ariv just because I can. You should try to daven ma'ariv. According to the man, the Omer, it's a shus. Okay, if you can't daven, fine. If you're honest, if you're by mistake or by force, something, but you should not go and not daven ma'ariv at all. Im lo yodo enes ktsas. Tosis says that it has to be even a little bit of a something that happened to him that is not out of his powers. And Bachas also says if someone did not daven ma'ariv, mispal shachar time, you daven shachar. What's the law if you didn't daven ma'ariv? You daven shachar, you do tushmanes. But the same question goes: if alvis is a reshus, if alvis is not a choiva, not an obligation, how can you say an entire shmanes saying Hashem's name again and again and again? If there's no chayva, how can you make it up something that you're not obligated? So from here is proof that ma'ariv there's an obligation to daven ma'ariv. The Gemara says in Berachos also, if on Rosh Chodesh, if he doesn't say Ya'aleh v'yavoi by Ma'ariv, we don't go back. What's the reason the Gemara says? Not because Ma'ariv is a shuz. The reason is because there is no, the Kiddush HaChodesh concept being sanctifying the moon does not exist at night. Therefore, if he doesn't say Ya'aleh v'yavoi at night, we don't go back. But if we would, let's say theoretically, if we would say, yes, you could sanctify the moon at night, machzirin, you would go back. We don't make a difference. The Gemara doesn't even mention this if it's a shechayva. So here basically we see the mashmad lekal madapalik. Basically from the shchodesh we see that the reason why we don't go back is because of a separate reason, and we don't say that the reason we don't go back is because the whole davening ma'ariv is only in the shus. From here it's basically
we did sanctify
what?
I thought we did sanctify it at night. We see it at night.
We make the bracha at night, but in the times of the Beis Hamikdash.
So you saw it at night. You went to the Beis Hamikdash.
Yes.
At night.
No, in the morning. You went the next.
You went the next morning.
Yes. You went in the morning. You went to the Beis Hamikdash. There's no din Torah at night. The Beis Din did not operate at night. There was no, and there's another halacha in Beis Din where you have to start a din Torah and finish it in the same day.
Right.
Technically, if it's especially if it's talking about killing, and so there's no like dragging out court dates. So it's just in one time. Okay, that was the Tosfos I wanted to learn. But so we have if you want to flip over to the Mashah, a very interesting Mashah right here in the back over here. It is in the Mashah on Daf Vav in the Mashah in the top of the Vav. No pages from this thing, but yeah. So the Mashah here in the back. I don't know how it's lined up on this one. Okay, it's no page. You're in page now.
There's no pages.
Okay,
Whatever.
so-
You just tell me.
So in this Gemara, this is a much harder Mashah. Okay, the words are really small.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Microscopic.
Yeah. So here it's in Daf Dalet, and Mashah it's in the Daf Dalet. Here's Zayin Daf Dalet. So we're gonna go to Daf Tes. Daf Tes Amud Beis. So Mashah has two things. Mashah has Chidush Halachas, has when he discusses things, and then he has Agudas Mashah when it's just like when we're talking about Agadah, they're in stores. So the first one in the Agadah, which is this even smaller, there's a larger print and a smaller print than Mashah. So Daf Tes Amud Beis has a Daf Tes Amud Beis here, and here the smaller print. Uves Liuchad Liska, and you found it? No, it's on page down. I'll go back a little bit.
I thought you said test.
No, it's on mine. It's so yours is also different. Okay, 1 second. No, here. Above. One more. Here. So the Mashah says something interesting like this. So it brings this pasuk. This pasuk speaks about one thing. This pasuk of Uvas speaks about one thing. What is it speaking about? If someone did not say Shema in its time, or did not daven at all during the day, that's someone that you can't fix. And what if something that you're missing? So the Mashah explains we have to be talking about the same concept. It's one pasuk. So in the Gemara we said that missing means if his friends want to do a mitzvah and he's not counted, and he doesn't want to be counted part of it. But here the Mashah explains what kind of mitzvah we're talking about. We're talking about mitzvah of minyan. His 9 friends are standing there and says, "Come down with the minyan." He says, "No." He didn't down with the minyan. That's something that you cannot fill up. Chesed, it's a missing thing you cannot fill up. So we said what happened to mincha. What if you miss mincha? So that's okay. Why did he only say shachas navis? Who didn't feel as mincha? The truth is also mincha is the same. If you missed it, you messed up. One answer is a nakad dumi de bitl kriya shema. In the beginning we said that someone did not say kriya shema. Kriya shema is only during shachas and ma'ariv. Kriya shema doesn't exist in mincha. Therefore the Gemara continues. We're talking about someone did not daven shachas and or ma'ariv. Inamem, another answer. Another answer. It's actually a bigger chiddush. What happens? Ma'ariv, if you don't daven ma'ariv, When do you make it up, Maidif? Shachris. Maidif is the beginning of the new day. So Shachris, the makeup davening, is in the same day of the tefillah that you missed. Shachris is the same thing. If you don't daven Shachris, when do you make it up? By Mincha. But if you daven, so it's the same day. If you don't daven Mincha, the makeup is not on that day anymore. It's in a different day. So it's saying, even if you can make it up in that day, which is Shachris you can make up in the same day, and Maariv you can make up in the same day, then it's considered a chesed. For sure, Mincha, you don't even have to mention Mincha. That's what the Ashai is saying. The Ashlam Tashlumim B'yoyma, you can make it up that day. Mikal Magim, even though you can make it up in its day, Mikal Ma'uvas Lichaliskan, it's called a mistake, a crookedness that cannot be straightened out. Kivin Shlish Bab Izmana, because it didn't daven in time. The college can tefilos mincha, but for sure, we don't even have to mention tefilos mincha. The only time to make up mincha is in it the next day already. By Ma'ariv, that's the next day. So that's what Mashar is explaining why he doesn't mention mincha. Okay, so back to our Gemara on the Daf on the base on wide lines. Rabbi Shimon ben Asiyah says. So in the Mishnah, we brought the pasuk me'uvas liyuchad liskoin, something that's crooked that cannot be fixed, and then Gemara says that we're talking about. The first Gemara says that that someone didn't bring a korban. That's if you missed the korban and he went through on Yom Tov, didn't bring the korban. That's a move. That's something you cannot fix up. Now, Shimon ben Asiyah wants to add. There's no disagreement in the Mishnah. There's no machlokes in the Mishnah. He's adding. There's another thing also that's called mu'uvas leichis or something else. So Shimon ben Asiyah says, "Eza mu'uvas leichis." What is a mu'uvas? A crookedness that cannot be fixed. If someone has a relationship with a elva, with a woman that he's not allowed to be married, and now a child is born, and the child is called a mamzer, and this mamzer is a living being, and even if he makes tshuva and he sits and he cries and everything, the aveda has a living thing there. So says the Gemara like this. This is also brought down. So the Gemara like this. The Gemara is going to ask a question. So the Shimon ben Asiyah says, if a child is born, then it is something you can't fix. What if no child is born? Living with an elva, living with a woman you're not to have a marital relations with, is also an aveda. It's also a problem, especially if you live. Let's say a mamzer can be done in different ways. Either someone marries a sister, they have a child, or someone has a relationship with a married woman and the child is born. The child is called a mamzer. So, but the problem is if you have a relationship with a married woman and she does it willingly, then the married woman now has to divorce her first husband. She can't live with the second husband, and she has to divorce her first husband. So you're making. And this is also if there's no child involved. If there was just a relationship without a child involved, this woman now is messed up forever. So why does Rabbi Shimon ben Asiyah say me'uvas leichaliskan? It's a crookedness or something, a mistake you made that cannot be fixed. Only if a child is born. Even if a child isn't born, this woman is going to have to get divorced. This woman messed up her life. Says the Gemara like this: Hoylid in loy hoylid loy. Only if a mamza, a bastard, is born out of this relationship, then you can't fix it. But loy hoylid, if nothing was born, nothing came out of it, loy, then you could fix it. V'atanya, loy the nabalaisa. Shimon ben Asiyah says, goin if someone steals from a person, you can return his the item that is stole. And then he makes up for his aveda. He fixes his aveda. If someone robs a person, you can return the robbery, the item that he robbed. And it becomes fixed. If someone has a relationship with an eshes ish, with a married woman, and she becomes now forbidden for her husband, this person that did it also has punishment, he dies. But the problem is that the woman loses out. And even though there's no child involved, it's still considered a mu'uvas, it's still considered something you messed up, you made it crooked, that cannot be fixed. She cannot ever live with her first husband again. So the Braisa continues. Shimon ben Asiyah says, "Ein oimim baku gomol Bakul Chazi, the Shimon ben Yochai in our Mishnah added another thing that could mean something that he can't be fixed. He says that only someone that is originally a proper person, the Talmud Chacham, can become crooked. If something that's crooked to begin with, you're not going to call it crooked because that's its normal form. So he says, we don't say, come check out a camel for the Beis Hamikdash, make sure that it's kosher for the Beis Hamikdash. We also don't say Bakul Chazer, come check out and inspect the pig to see if it's kosher for a korban. Why? Because it doesn't even start with. The only thing you say that you should check out is a sheep, a goat. Why? Because that's an animal that is from the get-go is kosher for the mizbeach, and now we say come check it out to make sure it doesn't have any blemishes. We don't say that by something that's crooked. It's the same thing also with mu'uvas. He says the same thing also with mu'uvas liuchaliska. And what are we talking about? What's the mu'uvah? Something that becomes crooked. If something becomes crooked, it has to be straight first. The Talmud Chacham, it's talking about Talmud Chacham. He walked away from the Torah, and now he becomes crooked because of this. So he adds, this is an addition to what we said before, that what mu'uvas means. Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish says, "Kol Talmud Chacham shapirish min Torah, all of a kosev oimel." Any Talmud Chacham that walks away from the Torah, the pasuk says, "Ketzipoy noidedes min kone." It's like a bird that walks away from its nest. The same way also a person that doesn't learn Torah, walks away from learning Torah, he is removed from his place. It says another pasuk, what kind of sin, what kind of blemish did your forefathers find in me, the Eibishter, that they walked away from me? That's the pasuk, the two psukim, if someone stops learning Torah. But basically, going back to the question, Reb Shimon Nasi says, what is something that is crooked, it cannot be fixed, if a mamzer was born? But the Gemara asks, Reb Shimon Nasi himself says, that if someone has a relationship with a married woman, now this married woman is not allowed to live with her husband again. That is also a problem. So why did it say only if you have a child? So back to the question. The Gemara answers like this: 2 lines from the bottom. Lekashya. It's not a difficulty. Our Mishnah is talking about if someone has a relationship with a sister and a child is born. That if there wouldn't be a child, and she was never married to anyone, she could still get married to someone else. She was never married, she can marry someone else. Oh, so over there, the only problem starts for the woman. What? The problem starts when we have a child here. The fact that he gets punished because you have a relationship with your sister is a different thing. But here, the mess up, something that you can't turn around and fix. The woman is fine; she has a child, so it's fine. She can go on and get married. But the child is messed up. That's what our Mishnah is talking about. If someone has a relationship with a sister that was never married, and they have a child, that's when we're talking about that he can't be fixed because the child is a mamza.
But he was never straight to begin with, right? He was crooked from the beginning.
So that is a different. What we said before that someone has to be straight and crooked. Mm-hmm. So that's an additional. Yeah, it's independent. Yeah, that's nothing to do. That's Shimon adds to our Mishnah. But in essence, yes, he was crooked to begin with. Someone knows that. So the Mishnah talks about someone has a relationship with a sister and a child is born. Here, where the Shimon Asiya says that if someone has a relationship with a married woman. Cant, ט.א-י.א. Here talking about a married woman. The only time a married woman becomes something that you can't fix, when you have relationships with a woman that you can't fix, is if it's a married woman. Our Mishnah, we don't have to go there. We're talking about someone has a relationship with a sister, that the only time it becomes something you can't fix is if a child is born. Then it's something that you can't fix, it's out of your powers. The Gemara says another answer. Last line on this page. Ha be'eshes ish. The Mishnah, our Mishnah, and the B'daisa over there are talking about a married woman. But by a married woman, the halacha is like this: if someone went against her will, and there was a relationship there against her will, then the woman is allowed to stay with the husband. So Khan, when it says that in our Mishnah, when it says about a mamza, we're talking about that he forced himself on this Eshes Ish. V'kan b'oines. We're talking about here it was against her will. V'kan b'datzin, but in our Mishnah, in the later Braisa, the Mishim Nasi says that she becomes not forbidden for her husband. We're talking about when she did it willingly. So then she becomes forbidden for her husband. For т.א-й.א say another answer that both the Braisa here that it says that even if there's no child, and the Mishnah that says he has to be a child in order to be something he can't fix. Both of them are if they're against her will. A woman that is forced to do something, she's allowed to live with her husband, but that is only if her husband is a sdal. If her husband is a kohen, there's a halacha here that says that a woman that it happens to her, she's called a zaina. She's called a zaina. So, and it says halacha in the title that a kohen cannot live with a woman that's a zaina. So even though it was against her will, an Ashes Kohen will have to divorce her. So in our Mishnah, we're talking about a regular woman. She's married to a Yisrael, and she was forced. And here, the only problem would be if there's a child, then it's something you can't fix. But in the Braisa, where it says that someone has a relationship with a married woman, even if we're talking about it, he was forcibly in a relationship with her, we're talking about Ashes Kohen, and then the woman has to get divorced from her husband. We mentioned before that if someone goes away from Torah, we have brought a pasuk. It's like a bird that walks away from its nest. It's someone that's something you can't fix. So the Gemara is going to finish here. There's a pasuk in Chagiga that says someone who goes and comes has no peace. So they explain that Rashi they explain on Rav says Kiven sheyoytze adam et va'alacha. The dvar if someone decides to leave go of halacha and go into learning chumash, the psukim shuva and shalom has no peace. What does halacha mean? In general, mishnayos and gemara are called halacha. So if someone lets go of mishnayos, which explains the psukim in the Torah in a much more detailed version, and the Gemara even explains even more than that, and you can only derive halachas psak din. You can only derive from the Gemara. You cannot derive it from the psukim. You can't pass them from a pasuk in the chumash. The Torah teaches us the Gemara teaches us how to look at the psukim. So if someone walks away from learning Gemara and Mishnayos and says, I'm only going to learn Chumash, he's never going to have peace because he's never going to be able to learn something out of it. He needs Gemara to teach him the psukim in the Torah. Shmuel says, if someone decides to let go of the Talmud, the Gemara, and only do Mishnayos, and Mishnayos, even though it's machloikas, but there's there's halacha, we don't learn a halacha from Mishnayos. So he's never going to have peace. He goes away from one version of the Talmud to another version of the Talmud. Which two versions are we talking about? Talmud Bavli and Talmud Yerushalmi. Now, which one is worse? Going away from Talmud Yerushalmi and then starting to learn Talmud Bavli, or the opposite? So here's a machlokes. The Gemara doesn't say. This is a machlokes between the Mefarshim. According to Rashi, it explains that he goes away from Talmud Yerushalmi. Talmud Yerushalmi is more straightforward. It just says the halachas. Talmud Bavli is, as we can see, back and forth. So if someone decides he was learning Talmud Yerushalmi and decides now I'm going to learn Talmud Bavli instead and not look at the Yerushalmi at all, that's considered something not good. That's called that he's not going to have peace because now he's going to have to start looking at everything and arguing and back and forth. The Tosfos says you can learn it in other ways. Other Mefarshim also say that no, the opposite might be true. That we're talking about going away from Yerushalmi. Going away from Bavli is more geschmack. There's more juice to it. There's more spices. There's more things happening, and here it's back and forth and arguments. Yerushalmi is very, in a way, I shouldn't say it about the Torah, but in a way it's more boring because it's just straightforward. You're just going to read through the Mishnah. So go walking away from Bavli. So whether you're walking away from this or walking away from that, the idea is don't walk away from learning at all. Shekoyach, now, and we'll see you next week.